Now, what is the issue here? What is the main issue here? Is that all these lies that have been happening over the years are not challenged by Piers. You and all the mainstream.
Well, that's completely untrue.
No, it is true.
All that says to me is you've never seen me on air.
I have seen you.
Well,
I have seen your interview.
You saw me for years at CNN.
I have seen your interview.
You've seen me interview Netanyahu twice?
I have seen your interview just a few days ago with the Israeli ambassador. She did say here, on this seat, that they provided the whole south of Gaza as a safe zone and they are building shelters to Palestinian civilians. She told you that.
And I said
Did you challenge her?
I said that.
Did you challenge her?
I challenged her like this.
No, you did not challenge her. You did not challenge her. Let me tell you, my sister. No. I'll tell you, my sister.
And literally, they get people to move into the south, and then there was the own IDF spokesperson speaking with Sangita earlier on, explicitly saying, "Oh no, well we had to bomb the south because there were military targets in the south." Yeah, you told everybody to move. You already know that Hamas use people as human shields, so of course you tell people to move to the south. All of the militants will move with them to maintain their premise as human shields. So this move from the north to the south nonsense doesn't make any sense given the human shields narrative, right? All it does is give you free reign to be able to try and ethnically cleanse the north of Gaza. As far as from what I can see, that would be the only reason that you do it. If you then get people to move to the south and then bomb the south, as well as the routes out of the north as well, let's not forget about that happened too.
She denied there was a humanitarian crisis.
She did.
I said there was.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
No, you didn't.
Yes, I did.
You started that conversation with her with showing an outpouring emotions, good for you.
Yes.
About the mothers. Why didn't you start with me about the thousands of mothers, grandmothers?
I literally read that.
With me.
Well, Ambassador.
This is the asymmetry.
Ambassador.
That she lied.
There's no asymmetry.
She lied with you.
Let me be clear.
And she said that the south of Gaza is safe. You know how many people were killed in the south of Gaza only in the last 48 hours? You know that my sister now, she lives in the south of Gaza.
I know.
And you're following my Twitter. Look at my nephew, Ammar.
I saw it.
You saw Ammar.
Yes.
You saw what happened to Ammar.
Yes.
They live in the south. So an Israeli official sits here and tells the world that the south of Gaza is safe and people should go there en masse, therefore ethnically cleansing these people to the south to actually slaughter them. And then you, Piers, do not look her in the eye and tell her, stop lying. I was on the BBC Sunday morning just a couple of days ago with the Foreign Secretary and others. Before me was another Israeli mouthpiece, spokesperson, Mark Regev. He said, we did not and will not target any hospitals. They lie all the time.
Yes, but just to be clear, on the hospital, there is a clear...
And again, just going back to Shireen Abu Akleh, every single trick in the book, it was a Palestinian, it was a stray bullet, it was an accident, and then later on, months down the line, oh, actually, we did it, but let's forget about it now. Every time.
Substantial set of evidence, which has been established now by the BBC, by their independent verify unit. They don't have any skin in this.
You think that was the first time Israel targets a hospital, Piers? Really?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just talking about last night's atrocity.
It wasn't even the first time that hospital had been hit. They literally had a warning shot fired at them that was relayed to the person who ran the hospital. There was a Médecins Sans Frontières worker who'd been interviewed by Middle East Eye, talking about how that hospital had already been hit by another strike previously in that week.
Which is what it is, because hundreds of people have died. There remains a massive question mark over whether Israel had anything to do with it.
What about the other 2,800?
Well, let me come to this. All right.
What about the other 2,800?
Let's come to this. So I want to take you back to October the 7th, because you were very quick last night when you believed it was an Israeli airstrike that had committed this horror, which had killed several hundred people. We're not entirely sure of the exact death toll yet, but certainly hundreds of people appear to have died. You were very quick to demand that everyone from Keir Starmer to others publicly condemn what had happened.
Of course.
So let me take you back. Well, hang on. Let me take you back to October the 7th.
Don't play this.
No, I'm not playing anything.
No, don't play this. Don't play this.
If you are in the...
No, what I wanted...
Ambassador, let me finish my question.
Okay. I know where you're going, but I want to explain.
I don't think it takes a genius to work out where I'm going. But let me ask a question first.
Okay.
Then you can respond, please.
Okay.
My question is this. You're very, very keen to demand that political leaders, including Sir Keir Starmer here, publicly condemn an attack on a hospital which may not have been Israel, right? And you repeated that throughout your evening on Twitter, right?
That's true.
But what you are not prepared to do yourself as the ambassador to the UK, because I've checked your Twitter feed and you've not done this, and to my knowledge, acknowledge you've not done this in public, you're not prepared to condemn Hamas for the
Hey, he said the meme. He did the line, everybody. Take it off on your bingo cards. Do you indeed condemn Hamas?
slaughter of 1,400 innocent people in Israel on October the 7th. So I give you the chance, given that you want others to condemn acts that kill people, even if they're not responsible, given that Hamas have brazenly admitted responsibility for what they did, are you prepared to condemn it?
Piers, you know, this game and this narrative...
It's not a game.
It's a game.
Why?
I'll tell you
why. Should you demand condemnation of people dying, but not be prepared to condemn it yourself?
Allow me to explain it to you and to your viewers why it is a game, and a very vicious, unfair, asymmetric game that has contributed to the oppression of my people for 100 years. Number one, you know our position. You know that Hamas is just a militant group that was created 20, 30 years ago.
You think they're terrorists?
You asked me this question? Okay. What is the definition of terrorism?
Well, no, I'll just ask you,
what
you think
is
they're
the definition of terrorism?
The UK government,
I'll give you the
UK government
I'll give you the definition.
has them as a prescribed
Piers,
terror group.
I'll give you the international United Nations definition of terrorism. It is the unlawful use of violence against civilians to terrorize them for the sake of a political agenda. Agreed? Agreed? Unlawful violence against civilians. Do you, and answer me please.
Well, no, I've asked you a question.
Do you consider Israel to be
Ambassador,
to be,
with respect, I'm asking you
a terrorist
questions.
state? Do you consider Israel to be a terrorist
Ambassador,
state?
if you won't answer me, why should I answer you?
Did we agree? Did we agree on the definition of terrorism?
I've asked you, is Hamas a terror group?
Israel has been targeting civilians in front of your eyes for 75 years.
But why should I answer any of your questions if you won't answer mine?
Deliberate targeting, and not just this round. 2014, you know all that happened. 2005.
I'm very aware of the history.
Okay, then you are
I've been
aware.
very critical of Israel over
Is
the
Israel
years.
a terrorist state?
I find it very difficult to believe that Piers knows the history. He may know some of the history, but do you think he really considers the Nakba the Nakba? I wonder. It'll be interesting to see if Husam presses him on this.
I'm asking you the question.
Is Israel a terrorist state?
Ambassador.
Well, this is the asymmetric.
Ambassador.
Answer me and I'll answer you about Hamas.
No,
answer
it's
me.
not how this works.
No, it is.
It's my show.
It is.
And you're a guest on my show.
It is. From now on, this is the way it works.
Okay,
Piers.
but
I mean, Husam is 100% correct. The issue, of course, is not whether or not he condemns Hamas, but the fact that all of the kind of things that Hamas does, terrorize civilians, for example, to achieve political ends, as he correctly defined them as, is something that Israel does and has done since its inception. Since its literal inception. I mean, its inception, the Nakba itself, where they ethnically cleansed Palestinians from where they lived in 1948. This was explicitly acts of terror. Right? Yet the West allows them to do it completely, with complete impunity. No condemnation whatsoever. They're allowed to do it. They're allowed to do settlements outside of scant condemnation, really and truly. What they do, breaking international law, killing civilians, oppressing the Palestinian population, as they have done throughout the years of their occupation. 100%. They've done this continually, and they never ever get criticised for it. Do you think Zipi Ottaveli goes on the news programmes that she goes to? Do you think she ever gets asked to condemn the settlers? Do you think she ever gets asked to condemn the human rights violations of the people of Palestine? Do you ever think she gets asked to condemn the historic atrocities that have been committed against the Palestinian people by the State of Israel? No, never. They never do it. They never ever do it, even though she's actually representative of the people doing the crimes. Unlike Mr. Zomlot there, who's a representative of the Palestinian Authority, which isn't even linked to Hamas at this point in time anyway, since the split in the late 2000s. And this is why it's asymmetrical. He's 100% correct to call this stuff out, right? Because if Piers says, well, actually, okay, fair enough, then Israel engages in acts of terror, then Mr. Zomlot would be perfectly within his rights to respond and say, yes, absolutely.
There has to be equity
and
symmetry.
Ambassador, you are the ambassador to the United Kingdom.
We are equal. I'll ask you a question.
You are the ambassador.
I am, proudly so. I'll ask you a question.
And you've been here, I think, since 2018.
Yes.
You've been ambassador for 5 years, right?
Yes, and I was in the US before.
Right, and the UK government has Hamas identified as a prescribed terror group. Do you agree with that?
Well, in which case, they're going to have to condemn the Israeli government for helping to empower Hamas, as we now know that Netanyahu did, to try and break apart the Palestinian Authority so he could continue his plan of conquest and colonization and settlement against international law. So that is aiding and abetting terror as far as Piers Morgan is concerned. because that's what Netanyahu has already done by his own definition.
That's the UK business.
You don't agree?
No. This is not about me agreeing or agreeing. I'd like the UK to designate the Kahanist in the Israeli government as a terrorist group.
You may want other groups designated.
As a terrorist group. I want to see.
But as the Palestinian ambassador, do you disagree with Hamas being prescribed as a terrorist group?
Get my point. Please, get my point. I want to see equal treatment, and I will accept the equal rules. If these rules are applied on the Israelis, I would raise my hand and accept it.
Okay.
I will put my hand on my heart.
Let me say this to you.
Do you consider Israel to be a terrorist state?
Let me say this to you.
That's number one. Number two, I'll ask you, do you accept the UK? You asked me about the UK government. The UK designates Palestine as the occupied Palestinian territory, right? OPT. We are occupied. Do you accept that designation?
Well, it's an interesting question about occupation, isn't it?
That's your government.
I think the Palestinians have lived in a very repressive...
So it's not occupation?
Well, it's a repression, right?
What?
They are living
You don't accept...
See, literally, they always do the same thing. It's always the same thing. Whatever they do, and they say, oh, well, you condemn Hamas as terrorists. You say they're terrorists. Have they committed terror, right? Have they broken laws? Are they criminals, right? Are they a terror group? They will continue this line of questioning. Will you use my specific verbiage on this? And then when you respond and say, well, will you use that same definition, those same standards, right? Will you apply those same standards to the state of Israel? Silence, crickets. No equivocation is allowed on these ones, as far as the UK media are concerned, as far as Westerners are concerned, towards what the state of Israel and what it has done historically and what it does now. Never any equivocation from them. And he's doing it literally right now, where he won't use the same verbiage.
They are living as repressed people. So, I have for years...
Oppressed by what?
Well, they're oppressed by Israel effectively keeping people trapped in Gaza, right? And they have the ability, as they've shown in the last few days, to turn on and off water, to turn on and off food supply. I think all this is wrong.
What about the West Bank?
Ambassador, I think it's all wrong. But let me just ask...
No, this is a major point.
You're not interviewing me.
Is it an occupation?
Ambassador, you're not interviewing me. And what you're trying to do, if you don't mind me saying, you are distracting from my original question.
It's a conversation.
Respectfully, Ambassador,
it's a conversation.
I was interested that you last night were demanding that political leaders like Keir Starmer condemn a supposed attack by Israelis on a hospital, which now looks like it wasn't by Israelis. And I'm simply saying to you...
You keep repeating
if
this.
you want...
Parroting this.
Ambassador, let me finish my question.
How do you know it's not by Israelis?
I don't.
How do you know?
I don't.
So don't say it.
But nor do you.
I know what I'm saying. I represent the situation.
You do not know it was an Israeli airstrike.
You hold me accountable next time. You're neutral.
Okay.
You're neutral.
I am neutral.
I'm not neutral.
Okay, I get that.
So no.
Okay.
You are being biased.
That is honest of you.
You are taking the Israeli side.
No, I'm not.
You are.
I'm not saying...
You are following the cue from Israel.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm saying the BBC Verify unit has said tonight, do you think they're impartial in this or not?
They shouldn't.
They won't even call Hamas terrorists.
This is none of their business. This is the business of Karim Khan, the prosecutor.
I'm going to ask you one more time, and you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to. It's entirely down to you. But given that last night you wanted people to condemn what happened last night, in your belief that it was an Israeli airstrike, and you were ferocious in demanding that repeatedly, will you now take the opportunity to condemn what Hamas did on October the 7th? I only ask you one more time.
22 Arab states convened at the beginning of this, including my state, my government, and they condemned.
Do you personally condemn it?
They condemned the killing of civilians from all sides. Right. You know what?
Not all sides.
No, from all sides.
Do you condemn what happened on October the 7th?
They're doing the Corbyn thing. They're doing the literal Corbyn thing. They're doing the Corbyn thing where he says all of the crimes, including the ones you're asking me to condemn, are wrong. And they go, well, will you specifically condemn this one? Is that not included in what I just said before? Is that not the same thing?
Why are you so reluctant to condemn it?
You asked.
You were the one last night demanding people condemn things.
I'll tell you why. I would be the first to condemn. If I ever saw you asking an Israeli official to condemn, did you ask the ambassador to condemn all the atrocities?
I will be asking.
I'll tell you.
I will be asking a representative of the ambassador.
No. You had the ambassador before me. You did not ask her to condemn anything.
Then you didn't watch the interview.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Okay. Let me ask you one more time.
I did.
Because I'm not sure if you heard my question.
I will not answer this question unless you allow me to explain.
No. That's fine. You don't have to answer it.
No. I'll tell you.
But if you're not going to answer it, don't demand that other people condemn things.
No.
And certainly don't ask me to condemn things. If you won't condemn 1,400 people being slaughtered...
Our position.
How can you not condemn what they did?
Our position is very clear. I represent the Palestinian leadership and people. I represent the PLO. That's the sole legitimate representation of the Palestinian people. President Mahmoud Abbas, the government.
I know.
Hamas is not part of the government.
I know.
Okay, that's number one. Number two, that legitimate representation I represent have committed for 30 years for first non-violence and negotiations, I belong to that camp. You're asking the wrong person. Committed to international resolutions and committed to the recognition of Israel. We recognize the state of Israel long before anyone else. And we still waiting for Israel's recognition of us. And guess what happened in this 30 years? Every political avenue was blocked. Every legal avenue like the ICJ and the ICC is blocked. Every hope for any Palestinian is blocked. You are talking to a person who religiously believes in non-violence. So please don't ask me that question.
If you believe in non-violence, Ambassador, why are you reluctant? If you believe in non-violence,
that's why I picked diplomacy.
Why are you so reluctant
That's
to
why I
condemn
wanted to become an
the
ambassador,
worst
because
terror attack
I believe in the power. I believe
9/11?
in the power of diplomacy. I believe in the power of non-violence.
Okay.
I believe that we should always return and maintain the moral high ground. But that's why I am answering the way I'm answering.
Okay, I understand.
That's why I'm challenging you.
Okay,
because
I understand.
the moment I accept your question is the moment I accept we are the instigators of violence. We are the aggressors. And I asked you the question before.
I actually didn't say that.
No.
I didn't say that to you. I understand you're not part of Hamas.
The instigators are clearly, in terms of how the whole cycle of violence starts, right? I'm not saying that they instigated this specific event, right? But the cycle of violence is instigated by Israel. They're the ones who instigate it. They're the ones who do the blockade. They're the ones who engage in the occupation. They're the ones doing the settlements. They're the ones breaking international law. They're the ones who bomb people with white phosphorus, where the police break children's bones, where there are checkpoints and controls on water, controls on taxation, controls on food. That's what Israel has been doing for decades to the Palestinian people. They are the instigators of the cycle of violence by engaging in the occupation in the first place. That cannot be justified. That cannot be refuted.
No, not me only.
I
The
understand
entire Palestinian people are the instigators
I understand
of
you're not.
The question.
I understand you're not
Let
Hamas.
me explain, Piers, please.
But I understand it.
Cool down. The moment I accept this logic of condemnation, in the lack of Israeli officials being asked by you and everybody else to condemn, that moment I accept that my people are lesser of a people, that we are not equal, that we are a lesser of a, children of a God.
And I don't believe that.
Okay, no, I think.
And I think Palestinian people are
moment-
absolutely entitled to fairness and equality and human rights. Many of the things they've been deprived of for decades.
The moment-
I would love to see peace.
Then talk about this in an equal and symmetrical manner, right? Use the same language that you do, that you're currently doing with the representative of the Palestinian Authority, and use that same language with whatever Israeli representative that you come up against. That's what we're asking. That's what we're asking you to do. And also to recognise the asymmetry of how the conflict came to be where it is, about who's occupying who, about who's settling who, about who's a recognised state and which ones are occupied people, which are not recognised currently by the government of the country that you're speaking at the moment.
In the Middle East. But nobody can show me how what Hamas did on October the 7th has done anything for the Palestinian people other than set everything back and make peace even more unlikely.
The moment I see that equity, that balance, I'll be the first to use any word you want. But so long as there is this imbalance, this racism against Palestinians, this consideration of us of being, 1/5.
But I'm not racist against Palestinian people.
I think there are people who are racist. I think anti-Palestinianism is flourishing everywhere. I think we are seen as to be less of value than the Israeli lives.
Let me ask you
I'll tell you what.
Ambassador.
You brought me here. You're bringing everybody. This has been the focus of everyone. You have located your moral compass on the 7th of October.
No.
Did you locate your moral compass?
All that says to me is...
Did you locate your moral compass on the 200 people killed this year in the West Bank? Did you bring me to discuss the many Palestinians who were killed only in the last few months?
I've been a journalist for 30 years. I've run major national newspapers.
Yeah, probably not worth bringing up your time at the Daily Mirror, Piers? Probably want to leave that one off the resume, eh?
Please do not pigeonhole me as somebody that has no compassion for Palestinian people. I know, but don't generalise.
You oppose the war.
I've been getting Palestinians on all week. I've been giving Palestinians platforms, including you, all week, right?
But when Israelis were harmed, you see, this is what I'm telling you. Why didn't you bring Palestinians when hundreds, thousands of Palestinians are killed by settler militias?
Ambassador, here's my answer.
Yeah.
I can guarantee you, absolutely guarantee you, that if the Israelis ever carried out a terror attack of the nature we saw on October the 7th...
What's just been happening for the last few days, Piers? Have you not missed all of the thousands of dead children in Gaza? Have you not considered the kind of levels to which these kind of things happen all the time across the entire occupied territory? Every single day? Again, it's exactly the asymmetry that Mr. Zomlot talks about. What is considered to be the barbaric act and what isn't. Only one kid haunts Piers and it's Millie Dowler. No comment, Satnav. No comment.
They're doing
what? They
since
killed...
1948.
They pulled... Holocaust survivors out of their homes and kept them hostage. They shot babies in their cribs.
Watch the terminology.
How about all of the Nakba survivors in the West Bank, Piers? All the Nakba survivors in Gaza? Are they not worthy of the same amount of care as you correctly apportion to those who were Holocaust survivors who were so horrifically affected by the events of the 7th of October? This is what Husam means by not valuing Palestinian lives in the way that they value Jewish lives. Of course, I'm not saying the Nakba is as bad as the Holocaust. Clearly it is not. Clearly the scale and the nature of the things that happened there are wildly different. The danger of the rhetoric is the same, and the lack of discussion of the humanity of the people is the same.
Burned families alive?
Terminology
deliberately going in to get civilians?
You see.
The Haganah engaged in biological warfare where they put typhoid in the water of the Palestinian territories in the Nakba. And that's the people, the relatives of those people, actually people still alive today. It was only 75 years ago. There are still people alive today who lived through that terrorist war in 1948. People alive today who did so. The president of the Palestinian Authority was chased out of his home in Safed, Mahmoud Abbas.
You see, your responsibility is to really use the right terminology.
Why? This is indisputable.
All of the words.
All that happened.
You are invoking many things here. You've just invoked terrorism. You are now invoking ISIS.
You don't dispute it was a terror attack, surely?
You are now invoking ISIS, and you spoke about...
I haven't mentioned ISIS, but for the record...
You did.
Not with you, but for the record,
with everybody.
I do believe there's a parallel between what Hamas has done on October the 7th and ISIS.
No. Okay, you see...
You don't agree?
The Israeli...
I mean, it's such a ridiculous comparison. I don't even need to go into it, but very silly. Especially silly considering how much the Hamas and ISIS are enemies as well.
Look, what happened on the 7th of October is not condoned. We reject wholeheartedly the targeting of civilians. Our culture, our upbringing, who we are as Palestinian, Christian and Muslims, what happened is non-Palestinian. How is that? And we reject it. And we want to continue maintaining the moral grounds of our cause, very right.
Let me ask you this.
Okay, let me continue.
Yeah.
Let me continue.
Okay.
However, since the 7th of October, the first moment, Israel started preparing and putting together a huge campaign to delegitimize the Palestinian people, to link Hamas to ISIS, and then link Hamas to the Palestinian people, then link the Palestinian people to ISIS, then do the ethnic cleansing and the mass destruction and the mass murder you are following on your screen sets. Okay, that's exactly what happened. Then the international media, mainstream media, were literally following the cues. ISIS, you talked about Iraq all the time. ISIS is a group of criminals who gathered from all over, mercenaries who were there to kill and only to kill with no real agenda. You agree?
Yes.
You think Palestinians are that?
No.
Don't you think we have a political and legal case to make?
But I think
so why are we using this term?
Ambassador,
we are using these terms to allow the Israeli war machine to kill en masse.
Let me respond.
That's why we're using.
Let me respond.
So everybody who uses these words is complicit.
Ambassador,
everyone,
let me respond.
Everyone.
Let me respond.
Okay, respond, please.
I do not believe that most Palestinian people support what Hamas did on October the 7th. I do not believe you do. I do not believe the Palestinian Authority does. So do not think for a moment that I think you're all the same. Okay. I think Hamas...
But the Israeli government doesn't necessarily think so either. But they know, I mean, Netanyahu and his band of far-right thugs know that they can use it as a legitimate means of ethnic cleansing, as an excuse.
Hamas is a terror group who committed an act of unspeakable depravity and terrorism, and they must be held accountable. The question is, what is an acceptable way to hold them accountable? I do not believe a full ground invasion will do anything but make this 10 times worse, for the record. But let me ask you this. There are 200 hostages, I think 199 hostages being kept by Hamas. Should they be released? Yes. They include children, they include Holocaust survivors. What is your view?
Yeah, all hostages should be released. First of all, they should be kept safe and protected, and they should be released, but hostages from all sides.
How do we get to peace here, Ambassador? Final question.
We have 5,000 hostages in Israeli jail, including children and women.
Let me ask.
We have many of them.
You made your point.
Who are rounded there without charge or trial. So everybody has to be released.
I've got to wrap this. The final question.
True.
How do we get to peace from here? It seems to me, after 30 years of covering this conflict, we've never been further away from peace between Israel and Palestine. How do we get to peace here?
By listening from your heart and your brain that this is a people struggle for 106 years. 106 years because it all started here. The Balfour Declaration by the British Empire, where they promised our land without consulting us, and they turned us in that 67 words into non-Jewish minorities. We were 98% of the population. We had lived there for millennia. We were the cradle of civilization. We produced every prophet. Palestine is the birthplace of Christianity. We were literally the hub of the region, the linkage between Europe, Asia, and Africa. And all of a sudden, we are only a non-Jewish minorities. And then Britain took over our land. And not only they denied our peoplehood and nationhood in 1917, but they denied us during the mandate our statehood, because the contract with the League of Nations was Britain will come and take mandate of Palestine to prepare us and to recognize us as a state as Palestine. You know what happened in the Nakba and the mass expulsion, the Jewish militias at the time ethnically cleansed 2/3 of our nation, including
I know the history,
including my own parents. So
I know the history,
since
and
then,
I have great sympathy, by the way, with what happened to Palestine.
Since then, my people, 67 and the military occupation that we discussed, since then, this is a people's struggle for freedom, for justice, for equality. This is a people's cry to survive.
How do we get to peace?
By full application of international rules. We did not create the post-World War II
two-state solution.
Yes, of course, Israel has to end its occupation that began in 1967. Refugee rights must be respected in accordance with international law. Two neighborly countries can get together with neighborly relations.
Okay.
But the Palestinian people have the right to defend themselves. And a state, we don't have an army. A state has an army. A state will do so. So occupation is the root cause of all this discussion.
I have to end it there. We've had half an hour. I appreciate you coming in. Thank you very much.
The cycle of violence stems from the occupation. That's exactly what I was saying before. He was 100% correct. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.